This episode of Pixel Sift is proudly sponsored by Murdoch University School of Arts with courses in games, sound, radio, screen, communications and journalism. There's an extensive range of top quality fields to propel yourself into your future career. It's never too late to get involved and improve your skill set. So search Murdoch University for more information. To knowledge, Murdoch University School of Arts proudly sponsoring Pixel Sift. Hello, and thank you for joining us for episode 81 of Pixel Sift. This is the last episode before we head to PAX, which is coming up very, very soon, so less than 2 weeks'
Welcome
time.
back, Johnny.
Thank you. I enjoy coming back, hearing you slander me repeatedly in previous episodes. But we'll get on about that later.
Evidence of that.
There is plenty of recorded evidence about that. My name is Gianni. I'm joined by my traitorous co-hosts Mitch and Scott, mostly Mitch.
I'm going to have your job later.
And also joining us over the internet, we have Simon Boxer, who is from Twice Different. Simon, you're here to tell us all about your game, Bounce House, today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Simon's ex-Perthian. So we'll be learning all about why he left our state and grilling about that
to the dictionary, Johnny?
basically for the next half an hour or so.
So why do you hate Perth?
Yeah, tell us.
Oh no, it begins.
We'll also be hearing all about that, but what else are we checking out today?
Yes, we'll be looking into loot boxes and add-ons and how they're becoming the norm with almost every recent release. Games are starting to look more like services than goods.
Great, let's jump in, shall we?
Oh, God.
Did you know Pixel Sift is available on other platforms? You can find previous episodes on iTunes, Pocket Casts, YouTube, and on the Pixel Sift website.
We really got to stop using that promo before I have to talk.
Yeah, no,
that's the worst. Anyway, the global gaming community is sitting a little uneasy this week as we have come to realize that most of our anticipated games and a lot of the ones we already play may have moved over the service business model, seemingly without warning. But did this really happen out of nowhere, or did we just choose to ignore the signs?
Well, I think there's a very simple answer to that one, Mitch. It's been happening for a long time, and I think this is a very similar thing that's happening to a lot of different industries.
Did we call it? Is this one of those Pixel Sift called it
moments? No, I don't think so, because I think there's this as a service is the idea that people have, and they talk about lots of different industries that are now moving from an individual purchase to a service model, and it's basically the way that modern business kind of works. It's the example that comes to mind, and people who use creative software would probably know this off the top of their head, but when Adobe moved from their standalone purchase model to an ongoing subscription, and there's plenty of other examples like that. You know, your video store has been replaced by your video on demand services, where you've got a big range of choice, but they're getting an ongoing purchase from you. And I think what has caused a little bit of ire in this particular last couple of weeks is some of the inclusions of these sort of in-app purchases and these ongoing purchase ideas for games such as like single player. So Shadow of War, Mordor Shadow of War is the new game that's coming out. It's the sequel to the previous Mordor game, and it has it has a loot box sort of mechanic and an in-app purchase sort of mechanic, and people have been kind of getting upset about it.
So people have been saying that loot boxes are required before you are capable of beating the final boss,
which is not true.
Which is not true. Yeah, because I thought, how would you prove that? I mean, because to me, if I'm having trouble on a boss, I don't automatically think I need to buy something better. I just think I'm not that great. I need to get better.
It's like quitter talk.
Yeah.
Now, Simon, you've had a little bit of experience working in these sort of marketplaces. You've done work creating skins for the Steam workshop. What do you think about this sort of shift towards this sort of model, and especially for someone who is making stuff that's kind of part of that new model? Yeah,
I definitely think there's space for it, but I think it can be exploited as well. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Battlefront 2 announcement, where it is really sort of set up in a more pay-to-win sort of structure. Well, actually, I'm not sure exactly what the extent of their upgrades are, but from what I've read, it looks like it's getting towards quite an exploitative extent. But some other games, I feel like there's really a place for it. It covers the costs of ongoing development, so it means that games can actually get released earlier as well, and then it's sort of like an equivalent to early access in some ways, and it really lowers down the barrier for consumers. So by offering things that people can purchase as they play, you can charge less to sell the game, or even give it away for free in the case of the mobile space.
Or even Dota 2, for example, that's pretty prominent. And a lot of the MOBAs work on this model. There's a very low barrier to entry, and then there will be people out there who will pay a lot of money, and some who will just enjoy the game for free. I think that Battlefront 2 example that you talked about, there is sort of most of the things where people generally don't have a problem with these in-game purchases is when it's a cosmetic or non-functional upgrade.
I mean, also when the game is given to you and you need to make additional purchase, okay, fine. But Battlefront is looking to be about an $80 game.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. AAA games shouldn't be exploiting this system. Like, that is going to ruin it for everybody.
I don't know that they're exploiting the system. I just
say they shouldn't. I mean, but Battlefront 2, it seems...
Like, can you exploit a system that you created?
No, but there's... I think everybody's doing a really good job of this, except for... Well, I mean, the only example that I can think of off the top of my head recently is, like we're talking about now, the Battlefront 2, because what you can purchase and what you win through loot boxes directly, changes how successful you can be in the game and how you can play the game.
Whereas it seems like... It seems like a lot of stuff is side grades as well for other games. Like, and I saw the article about For Honor unlocks costing something like $700+ to unlock everything, which is an equivalent of over 5,000 hours.
Yeah, wow.
Gameplay, which is ridiculous, but
I think
it sounded like that's more like side grades, right? So it's still a skill-based game, but Battlefront, it's built into the core that you need this stuff to
progress through the game,
crush others into the ground.
And they do kind of offset it a little bit because they have a daily box sort of situation. So I guess the more days that you put in and the more levels you get, as you kind of unlock, similar to an Overwatch sort of situation. But there is an example where you could just throw stacks of money at it.
Overwatch, you don't get one for just showing up. But then again, Overwatch only gives you cosmetic stuff. But I guess if you were to expect to get like actual game-altering assets, maybe getting one for just showing up on the day might be a good idea.
But I think, and I've only played Battlefront 2 very scarcely, and I'm not completely down with it, but I'm pretty sure that they have a tiered loot box system, which changes everything again. Like, you might be getting your daily crate, and that's awesome, but that might be insignificant. It might be a nothing crate. You might need to get the premium crates to really get anything good.
There's really only one way to find out how the Battlefront 2, because Battlefront 2 has kind of taken it to another level, in for lack of a better term, because they've implemented this really complicated system of microtransactions, and we won't know how it actually affects the game until the game comes out.
Whether it flops or it succeeds. Look, all games are not created equal, and I think this format might not work for some games, and especially like developers are going to need to be careful with it, how far they push it, and for now at least, like not too soon.
I think that this would be an extremely data-driven decision.
For sure.
And they are not going to be making a decision that would be counter to what the data shows. So I think there's going to be people out there who are going to complain about it, but I think in the same way that people used to complain about Left 4 Dead 2 coming out, it's not that long after Left 4 Dead 1. And there was a famous example where...
we knew those people were morons.
Well, they knew, it was an extreme example where they knew that the people who joined the boycott groups on Steam, not going to buy Left 4 Dead 2, were actually more engaged than other people and bought it at a higher rate than anyone who didn't really care. So
amazing.
So it's just, I think people say things that don't really can back it up.
That's so true. It's so true. It looks like, to me, what EA is doing with Battlefront seems to be just a big experiment. And they're probably just going to see how far they can push it, as you say.
I feel like there is cause for concern because a lot of those modifications I noticed was affecting the recharge rate of your abilities. For example, the spaceship cooldown rates. Everything, the spaceships in Battlefront operate a lot like Overwatch characters in the sense that you need to wait for this thing to cool down before you can use it again. I can't imagine how ruined Overwatch would be if you could buy an ability to make Mei be able to cryo freeze more.
Yeah. I think it actually...
just constantly.
Yeah, just all the time.
It's already too much, and I play Mei.
Jennifer Sherl, who is Gaomi on Twitter is always got great insight into all of this stuff. She says that for games, these concepts kind of move in trends and available resources, platforms, and payment methods, and time investment and consumer preferences. You can say about loot boxes and in-game currencies whatever you want, but it has made games more accessible for people with less money. Because it allows people who are willing to invest the time instead of money to access content to still play the game. So free to play was a good thing.
Look, I was an avid hater of loot boxes and crates and everything, probably 12 months ago.
I would just like to illustrate how bad he was a hater of it. He would not open his Overwatch loot boxes.
Just didn't see the point in it. Do you know what? With Overwatch,
did you play Hearththone with no cards?
No. Look, I eventually came around to it, and I do see developers using them well, and I've come across with Overwatch. Even it was the summer loot boxes that got me, and I think a lot of developers are doing a really good job of implementing it at the moment. I think a lot of people there are some people that are doing it better than others, but I'm all for it, and I will support it going into the future.
And I think it also allows for different sorts of things. You can have a mix of bits and pieces. Simon, we're going to talk a little bit about your game, and it's got an in-app purchase sort of component to it, but it's also free to play. You just pick it, press download, and you're ready to go. So
that Twitter series that you were just talking about was Jennifer
Shirl.
Yeah, she made great points, to be fair, and she laid it down better than I could ever. If check her out if you are
interested in game development. Definitely one person to follow because she is on the pulse with all these things.
Definitely.
Let's jump into our next topic, shall we?
Pixel Sift. Pixel Sift. No, seriously, Pixel Sift. No, seriously.
Pixel Sift.
We're joined by Simon Boxer. He's from Twice Different. He's based in Melbourne, formerly of Perth. Simon, you've just released a game, came out this morning or sort of late evening last night.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, it's we actually did quite a few all-nighters this week, and I'm working another job at the same time, so yes, it was quite an effort.
How do you feel right now? Like, what you've reached this point, you've got the game out there. You're now talking to West Australia's own Pixel Sift. How do you feel?
I feel accomplished, but scared because we still need to do a lot of work. Because we are providing a game as a service, much like everyone else that's moving forwards in this progressive industry.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about what your game is about? If people haven't had a chance to check it out, how would you kind of describe it?
So it's a game about bouncing children off a bouncy castle. Well, that was the original pitch, but now it's off a bounce house because we found out that Americans refer to bouncy castles as bounce houses.
Really? That sounds wrong.
That's sad. For them more than anybody.
I've snuck in both things. So I've titled it on the App Store Bounce House, and then the subtitle is Endless Bouncy Castle.
I've seen that.
Bounce so we got
House. There. Yeah, an Endless Bouncy Castle mobile game. Fantastic.
And you've got the Castle Master as well, who's in there trying to... do Americans just look at that and go, I don't understand this reference?
I don't understand that reference.
I haven't even asked Americans, but yeah, I just wanted to use that because it sounded good. But I also suspect that it's translated very poorly. In French, it apparently the translator turned it into squire, and then someone retranslated it into an equivalent of someone that's kind of like lordly. So I don't think that will... But, people don't really care about the narrative of mobile games, so I just sort of let that one slide a bit.
So how have people kind of been reacting to your game? And you're going to be displaying it at PAX. You've got a booth ready to go, or starting to get ready to go. How have people approached it, and what have they been telling you?
Well, it's pretty early days so far, so a lot of the feedback that we got was just along the way while we're testing. We pretty much did weekly tests, and I run sort of a game developer lunch meetup here in Melbourne. And I'd show dev friends and get a lot of feedback on the way. But it's been a really positive response in general. I don't have specific things to say, although I am accruing some quotes that I want to use as testimonials, including Mitch's one from the video.
Oh no!
A game about ruining the fun of Children, yes.
That's something everybody can enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. Taking candy from babies as well, an important aspect of the
Totally.
game.
Yeah.
Now,
They don't need the candy.
they don't need it.
Yeah, they
That's
don't need
right.
it.
Rot their
Yeah.
teeth. They're not going to be able
And
to go
it's
to
just
the,
so easy.
the
And it's easy.
the dental van or whatever it is at school, dentist van. Simon, you've got a team that works across both sides of this country. You've got half of your team is in Perth here with us, and you're over in Melbourne. How did that team kind of come together, and what's it like working, across a whole country?
Yeah, and actually we've got our sound audio master up in Brisbane as well, so we've kind of got
Wow.
the
Almost all
axis of
corners.
Australia covered.
Just need someone in
Well, that's
Broome
just
now.
bragging at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. We need Broome.
We'll put the call out for Broome game devs and get some QA
Yeah.
out there or something.
Make it happen. Oh, we do need. We could use some more QA because at the moment we're just doing it with family and friends. Well, and whoever uses the Android beta, but anyway, it's out now, so the public will do it.
So what's it like? How do you work between a team that's kind of spread out across these big distances? It's not as easy to kind of meet in a coffee shop or at an office. And
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. For most of the project, I was on it full time, and Matt, the programmer, has been doing it sort of part time along with other contracts. So we catch up on Skype, but I guess we've given each other a lot of trust in that we can kind of just handle our part and it'll come together. So I don't need to have my hands in the code, and Matt doesn't need to have his hands in art, and together we can make something. I guess the design is the midpoint where there's a lot of discussion though.
so you talked about the having a game as a service and making it for something that people would kind of come back to, and that's an important design decision. How did you kind of settle on this model versus any other kind of model? How did that feel like the right fit for this game?
I think just the mobile space, premium is really sort of dead at the moment unless you've got sort of more of a narrative experience, I suppose. Like if you can build a lot of hype for your product, go premium. But if you don't have that power and we don't have that marketing muscle behind us, you've just got to go something like as accessible as possible, which is free to play. And ads are the main source of revenue nowadays for free to play games. It's something like 70 to 80% of your revenue will be made by just people watching ads, and even the in-app purchases aren't, they're a minority of the revenue that you get.
You say it's a minority of the thing. It's an interesting sort of idea that I remember when I first saw the ads kind of pop up into games and thinking this is actually a really brilliant way to get some revenue back from a game that you're ostensibly giving away for free, and the experience is there for free. How do you feel about having that sort of ad-supported model? Because in a lot of other industries, the ad-supported model is sort of starting to fade away.
Oh yeah, you can see it definitely fading away in free-to-air TV. I tried to watch a movie a few weeks ago, and there was actually half an hour worth of ads programmed into a 2-hour movie. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's ridiculous. But
and they wonder why Netflix is destroying everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
How do you strike that balance?
I think I don't actually mind ads in games, like especially if it's incentivized ads, and that's mostly what we're doing. Like we've got some interstitial ads, which are the ones that pop up just between plays, but we're very lenient with that. Like it's 10 plays between them kind of thing, which is a lot. It's like, yeah. But those ads are also kind of like ones you can skip through. But interstitial ads are the ones where, incentivized ads are the ones where a developer will build in some incentive for someone to watch like a full 30-second ad, and that's where you get like the bulk of your money. And because it's opt-in, the engagement is higher, and I feel like it's a win-win for both developers and consumers in that way.
Is there like a golden rule for the balance for these things? Is there previous research or anything like that, or is it kind of like play around with it and see if you can tweak it at the edges and see if you can make it work?
Well, I'm pretty fortunate in that I'm sort of immersed in the Melbourne scene where there's people that have seen ridiculous success, like the creators of Crossy Road, and they spawned Mighty Games, which made the Charming series, and Steppy Pants was made here, and a bunch of other, like there's a lot of ex-Half-Brick people here as well, and it's just some of those people have accrued their own data from the games that they've made and basically seen that, you know, having ads in doesn't actually deter people. People seem to be really primed for that situation in the mobile space nowadays. So I guess the balance is, well, we're very user-friendly with how we've implemented. From what I've heard, like, you can put a lot more ads in a game than we have. So I guess we're just trying to get started and see what happens, see if we can make it sustainable and, you know, keep doing what we're doing.
You've mentioned a little bit about the scene there, and, you know, you've left Perth. You know, is that scene being there and the sort of breadth of knowledge of people who've been making games for a long time, is that the main key advantage you see of moving to Melbourne?
Yeah, definitely. And I originally moved after Interzone closed. Well, actually, I originally moved to the US to study for a little bit, and then came back and was looking for somewhere to live in Perth, and that's when I was traveling around, to live in Australia. And that's when I was traveling around the capital cities and checking out the game scenes. And Mello was kicking off at that time, actually. And it was just Trent giving me a pitch at an IGDA meeting and showing the logo on the screen, just like as a big splash, and foreshadowing this big project they were doing with profit share. And I was like, yeah, I want to be on that. And so I chose Melbourne for a bit. And just, yeah, the connections here are very suited to what I need. And there's also a lot of industry, like a lot of peripheral industry that I can work in, such as VFX and you know, design related stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we have covered this a little bit before, and that the support in Victoria in general is quite great, especially when you compare it to the rest of the country. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, I got the GDC travel grant this year to go and show a very early prototype of what we had. And it was basically fill in an online form. They send you a few emails. You fill in another online form at the end, and they give you a few grand.
Yeah, wow.
There you go.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, you talked a little bit about the sort of work that you can do there. You know, there are a lot of studios kicking around, and you could have worked with, you know, almost any of them, I'd imagine. Why did you want to go out and make a game on your own and make this as your own sort of project?
Well, so my last gig was almost 3 years working on a war game, basically. So doing a lot of military type assets, and I just really wanted to do something a bit more ridiculous by the end of it. I just really wanted to do something sort of cartoony and have a bit more ownership. Like, I was doing Steam Workshop at the time and had a side income from that, and so had built up enough savings and whatnot to be able to afford to go off and try and do something. And mobile seemed like a space which accommodates kind of small scope projects. And because I hadn't released anything of my own before, that's sort of just how it fell into place. But it kind of came about after there was sort of like half laid off from this job, half wanting to move on, because I'd basically finished all of the work they needed for their full release, basically, of art and programming. Needed another half year or so. So leaving this company, going back to Perth, just hanging out for a bit, rejuvenating. I was actually at an afternoon tea when
Sounds
it
lovely.
sort of prompted the idea again. It was sort of an acquaintance's afternoon tea, and her kids were just running around the table and coming up to the adults and trying to engage them to play on the trampoline with them. And no one was like having any of that. But they sheepishly came up to me, who I hadn't met them before, and they're like, "Do you want to play on the trampoline?" And I'm pretty much like a child trapped in a 30-something-year-old body. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm down for that."
I'm going to get in on that tramp action.
Double bounce over the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kids stand back, watch me somersault. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm game. Yeah, that's fantastic. I was actually about to ask where the inspiration for the game has come. There is such a hole in the bouncy castle gaming world.
It's a genre and a niche that needs to be, filled out.
Inflated.
Maybe. Bouncy Castle 2. Yeah, inflated? Oh, they're a bit slow picking that one up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I did.
Now, Simon.
Thank you for joining us on Scott's last episode of Pixel Sift.
Yeah. Simon, you're going to be showing off your game at PAX Australia coming up in a couple of weeks' time on the 27th, 28th, and 29th. If people want to come check you out and come play the game, well, I guess they could play it on their phone right now because it is available right now. But if they want to come and talk to you and learn a bit about how you made your game, whereabouts can people find you on the floor?
Yeah, we'll be at stand 53, and we're also trying to work out some sort of thing that we can do at PAX that's a PAX-only sort of dealio. So do stop by and see what we've got prepared.
Get a discount card or whatever.
Get that exclusive content.
Yes.
Oh, or maybe even something better. Who knows? Who knows?
You'll have to come to find out.
Dibs.
Yeah.
It's so Simon's game is called Bounce House. You're from Twice Different, from a team that's spread around Australia. It is available on the App Store and Google Play. I was playing it this morning. I'm not good at that game, but it is
the
very
Apple
nice.
App Store or is it the Google? Because the Google
The
Play
Apple
Store.
App Store.
Apple App Store.
And the Google Play Store.
Google Play Store for Android. But I will give you a tip on leaving. So you can tap anywhere on the screen and just take your time. Like you can tap anywhere on the ground to go there and just pace it so you're not too frantic.
Oh.
That's my tip.
Not
Because
too
a lot
frantic.
of people just go in and tap spam, and that's not optimum strats.
Oh,
But
Nice.
So
we're still we're building out more of the tutorial at the moment. So
Awesome.
hopefully on the weekend we'll have another update with a bit more
'cause
clarification.
I found in the tutorial it's like just avoid 3 items, and it took me a long time to avoid 3 items. Admittedly, it was 5:30 in the morning, so I was like a bit dreary, a bit drowsy, but it's definitely very fun. You can check it out now. That's pretty much all we've got time for today. So thank you very much for joining us for episode 81 of Pixel Sift, where you can find out all about Simon's game and all the other developers that we've talked to by going to our website, and that website is www.pixelsift.com.au. As I say, a big thank you to the Murdoch University School of Arts as well for sponsoring this show. They help us out a lot and help us make this show every fortnight. So thank you very much for them. Now, Scott, I see you're preparing yourself, ready to read. Now, what would you like to read? Where are we on the internet, or where can we find old episodes?
Oh, exactly that. You can find us. Find more about us on facebook.com/pixelsift, twitter.com/pixelsift, twitch.tv/pixelsift, and youtube.com/pixelsiftau.
And Mitch, if we have an interest in an older episode, maybe you want to listen to Trent Custers from League of Geeks talking about Armello, a game that Simon has worked on. You can head back to episode 11 to listen to that one. But
Look at you.
I looked that up the other day, so years of practice.
Yes, so you can find all our previous episodes on our website. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Pocket Casts, or using the RSS link on our page. And if you're listening to us just on these platforms, we go live every fortnight, and our next episode will be on the 29th of October at PAX.
10 a.m. You
10
can watch it
a.m.
live at the Audio Technica booth. We'll be down there in a collaborative mode with another West Australian podcast called Party Loaded.
That's the earliest I've ever worked on anything regarding Pixel Sift.
Well, mate, you got to get up like me at 5:30 in the morning working on Pixel Sift.
That's super gross.
Simon, thank you very much for joining us. Really great chatting to you and learning all about Bounce House. I'm going to go home and learn some optimal strats, min-max my my abilities on this game. And when we meet at PAX, we'll show you how good we've gotten.
Yeah, do it.
Hey, we should put a poster like here.
A Bounce House poster.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Just put it in there.
Yeah.
Send us over and we'll stick it up for you.
Yeah, I'll print some out.
Great. Thanks, Simon. We'll chat to you next time. We'll catch everyone listening next time.
Laters.
Thank you.
Cheers. See ya.